Hello everybody, and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic, holding well, and today I'll be giving my thoughts on the film from 1986 called Stand By Me. This is actually my first time having ever seen this film, just finished it last night. But before I get into my review, if you could please smash the like button, hit the subscribe and bell notification, that way you know every time a new video goes live. And also, if you could share this video with anyone that you think might find this content interesting. And of course, if you wish to support the channel, you can check out links in the description of this video to find out ways that you can do so. So, Stand By Me, a film from 1986 starring Will Wheaton, River Phoenix, Cory Feldman, and Jerry O'Connell. Also a young Kiefer Sutherland in the film too, is the story of four friends who basically go off on a journey walking down the train tracks trying to find a dead teenager who got hit by a train while trying to essentially forage for berries in the woods. And so that this is something that's known. They just don't know exactly, the community doesn't know exactly where the body is. And so these four friends decide, hey, let's go ahead and on one of these last times, one of these last moments of our summer vacation, we're going to go ahead and we're going to make a journey of it. We're going to get our backpacks, not the backpacks, but we're going to get our sleeping bags ready. We're going to get all the stuff ready and go off on a camping trip, essentially, of sorts, trying to find this dead body walking down the train tracks. And I have to say, this film is just utterly fantastic. It's directed by Rob Reiner. I had no idea that this actually was directed by Rob Reiner until having started the movie. I was like, oh wow, this is incredible. I had, obviously I've known him for films like Princess Bride, which I've been a huge fan of for a long time, and this is a film also that's been on my radar forever. And it took me all the way up until like last couple weeks when finally Black Friday sales went on the deal, and I was able to get the 4K for about what, $10, $10 or $12, and so got it on 4K, was able to transfer it over, and the film just looks beautiful. So first off, let me just talk about some just the great pros of this film. Cinematography of this film is just utterly fantastic. All the framing works very well. All the colors work very well. Again, there's just some quality about movies that were shot on actual film that just have such a unique personality to them that digital films just don't have anymore. And I really do feel like if a film like this were made today, one, I don't think it would be made because of some of the subject matter, because of some of the language from the kids, and just the nature of the story. Also, of course, the lack of diversity in the film too, unfortunately, would probably keep this film from being made in the same way. But also the fact that it was able to be made and to be shot on film, I think would have been taking something away from it. I think that really does just add this authentic quality to it that just makes it feel like a story of its time, and it really feels like a story of its era. So obviously got to give a huge shout out to the cinematography and to the director of photography, and of course working with Rob Reiner, the director there, because people don't tend to know that typically what you have is you have the director of photography whose job it is to come up with the different frames, come up with the different shots, and normally he works hand in hand with a director, depending on what kind of director they are, to make sure that the shots in line with the overall director's vision of the film. And so they obviously both did a very good job of getting that together. Again, also, this is a time in which you don't have crazy use of visual effects or special effects or anything like that. It's all stunts. It's all actual images and sets and on location shooting. And again, anytime a film is going to utilize that and use that to a certain degree, it's always going to get props in my book. And obviously, this was kind of the Power for the Chorus is kind of exactly what movies did back in the 1980s and prior and even a little bit after too. But it really is just always refreshing to see a film that is just completely real, is completely authentic. Does not have random CG elements to it. That actually is what you're seeing is what you get, which I think is absolutely fantastic. So again, visually looks fantastic. The score also is pretty good too. What's interesting is that it's actually more of a soundtrack than it is a score. And it has probably, I argue now that I've seen the film, probably one of the best soundtracks. Obviously I would usually put films like Baby Driver up in that category. I'd put films like Guardians of the Galaxy up in that category as far as having some of the best soundtracks. I now put Stand By Me into that category too, because they have a lot of these just really awesome, 1940s, 50s, 60s era songs. Again, it's hard for me to place those songs sometimes, but again, it's just a lot of fun. As far as the music choices are concerned, all of them really fit with the time and the era. And of course, as you're following along and going on this journey with these kids, it really just, I think, adds that level of personality. Whenever a soundtrack is able to be utilized well, typically what it does is it adds its own personality that coincides with the personality of everything else going on the frame of the film. That leads me, of course, to the other key component of the personality of the film, which, of course, are the actors themselves. And all four of these kids, dear Lord, I always forget how talented Cory Feldman was, and still, fortunately, with all the things that have happened to him, reportedly have happened to him in his younger career, things that he's, now opened up a lot about both him and Corey Haim. It's just tragic to hear about these things because, he is incredibly talented. But then you also have to talk about Will Wheaton giving an incredible performance here. Obviously, a lot of people know him more from his role in Star Trek, and obviously more recently in shows like The Big Bang Theory. But this dude also, even as a kid, was able just to put on the works to the point where you just felt the emotion. There's scenes where he's crying and you feel his pain, and it's just amazing to see that kind of talent and that kind of performance from a young kid. Obviously, you have, a young River Phoenix, unfortunately, who passed away so young, the brother of Joaquin Phoenix. And he also, even as a young kid in this movie, again, as I said, this is the first time seeing it, incredible performance too, right? Both of them, like, those are really the two main characters. Really, it's their story for the most part. And I think both of them really just have great chemistry with each other. You believe their friendship, you believe their closeness, so that they're actually willing to open up with each other, to actually be able to be willing to cry, right? And obviously they're kids, and they're during a certain time in history, and so every time that they even show a little bit of emotion, they call each other a wussy, but obviously a different word for it. And so it's interesting just to have these two kids be able to essentially show that they can have emotions, and that they're not going to judge each other for it, and that they can be totally authentic. And it's just, again, an incredible experience to see these young performances in this way. Obviously, you also have Cory Feldman, as I mentioned, and Jerry O'Connell as Vern, who is kind of the comic relief of the group. Who's pretty great. Looking at his picture now, it's like, oh my goodness, I actually did not know that that's the same dude that was in this film, because he looks just so different from what he does now, from what he did then. But he gives a great performance too, as definitely the more more of the comedic presence in the movie overall. But this film really is special, and obviously the film ends with one of the most famous lines from it, with saying, you never have any better friends. And obviously, I'm probably destroying this quote, but you never have any better friends than the ones you had when you were 12 years old, or the friends you had when you're 12 years old are the best friends that you'll ever have. And I think that this film is definitely a love letter to childhood. It's a love letter to what it means to be more open, to be more authentic, to be more just open in general, right? As we get older, we tend to harden ourselves, right? We tend to harden our hearts. We tend to not be willing to share nearly as much with each other. And so I think this film really just goes and shows you why being a kid is something that I think a lot of us should probably try and hold on to a little bit more, because there's this authenticity to childhood that we tend to lose as we get older, right? We become more hardened, we become more cynical as we grow older. And obviously, being the critic who is a cynic, I understand this especially. But it really is, again, a very, very special story with, again, a lot of really great storytelling elements to it. Rob Reiner does a great job, again, crafting the images with his director of photography, being able to get these performances also out of the kids as well. And also, there is a famous actor that comes in at the very end, Richard Dreyfuss, who I did not expect to see at the very end of the film. And it was very awesome to see that happen at the end, because I just, again, was not expecting to see that at all. He was the person that essentially was the writer behind the story, because the movie, essentially, for those not aware, is set up to where you're hearing a voiceover, and it's obviously someone telling and writing a story. At the very end, you have this old school 1980s computer with the green text and everything. That brought me back too, because when I was younger and starting to, when computers were starting to be more utilized in schools, I remember using early computer programming, which was all that green and black text, the green text with the black background base. So that kind of brought me back to that element as well. But overall, fantastic movie, great cinematography, great score, really soundtrack, excellent acting from every single one of the actors, and really a compelling story. And now I understand why so many people have just loved this movie and loved this story for so long. It's only 90 minutes, and it really is, I think, the perfect length, perfect pace. All of it just works well together. All of the elements are just so fine-tuned that it's very hard for me to find any real issues with it, with the only issues, of course, being that, and this is something that I'm always a little bit more, I guess, sensitive to, is when younger actors or younger kids are on screen having to talk about certain things or say certain things in a certain way and using certain curse words and language. But obviously, it does bring that level of authenticity to it as well, because obviously kids at this age, especially when they're around the age of 12 or 13, that's when they start to do these types of things, right? That's when they start to talk this way, when they start to look at each other in this way. But it is, again, just a great story overall about friendship, about how friendships fade over time, and about how some friendships can endure, and also just sometimes the challenges that can come about through those friendships, and also just a different time in our life when we're a little bit more open. And again, I think it's kind of a reminder to us that, hey, there's always that kid inside of all of us that we should probably try and hold on to a little bit more, so that way we can be more authentic and we can be more open and not be nearly as hardened as we are, especially as we get older. So overall, I'm going to give this film a solid A. Definitely a fantastic movie, a classic from 1986. If you've never seen this film before, I can highly recommend it. It says now it's streaming on Stars. It is available for purchase, I think, on Blu-ray and 4K. Recently, the 4K release came out, or at the very least, it was on sale. So I definitely recommend it because it is beautiful. As I said, whenever you have a 4K transfer of a movie that was shot on actual film, there's just something to be said about how special that really is. This film had a budget around $8 million, it says, made about $52 million. I don't know if that's the worldwide totals or not, but still, excellent movie. But anyway, what are your thoughts? Have you ever seen A Stand By Me? Obviously, my 1980s knowledge is finally starting to grow. Gotta give a huge shout out, of course, to John Flickinger, who kind of, guilted me into, on our podcast live, buying it for the first time. And so shout out to him for always talking about this film, and almost every single one of his Blu-ray video reviews, he always talks about this movie, about how much he loves this movie. And so obviously shout out to you, good sir, for finally guilting me into actually buying it and actually finally watching it. So anyway, what are your thoughts on the film? Let me know in the comments section below. If you like this video, again, smash the like button, hit the subscribe. It really does mean a lot. You're all amazing, beautiful people. Check out links in the description if you want to find out ways that you can support the channel. Have a wonderful day, and as always, God bless. And now for a huge shout out to all of my December Patreon and Subscribe Star members, starting off with Patreon Albertus Magnus, Andrew Hoyle, Animation Commentator Brian P., Dion, Divex, Enrique Evangelista, Father Christopher Miller, hail to you, Father, Father Damian Cook, Garrett Searles, Harold Francis, The Hunky Chunky Funky Monkey, Inflamed Wood, It's a Trap Productions, Jason Clark, Jacob Juice, Jeffrey Toon, Jonathan Carney, Kenneth Camille, Laura Story, Mad Mitch Dunaway, Mike Jackson, Mr. Peabody and his evil twin with the beautiful hair, On to June, Orange Hat Reviews, Out of Step with Reality, Outpost Dyer, Riff Magos, Rosetta Allen, Steve Glasker, Miss Martin Muses, also known as Teresa Martin, Theodore Bendon, Tina Bogend, Tina B, and the Modern Major General, Laura Story. Gotta give you that shout out for that one time that you were doubled up. Thank you very much for being my Patreon members. And now a huge shout out to all of my December Subscribe Star members we have over there with Stand For, Perpetual Punster, Robert Revo, Mr. Roy, Glinzer, Darkstar 57, J. Alex McCarthy Jr., US 888209 Fast, Dean Heiss, J-Rod the Beer Guru, Nevadan G. Adams, and ZK-Man. Thank you all so much for being my Patreon and Subscribe Star members. If you want your name shouted out at the end of every video and live stream on the main channel, please consider joining over on those platforms. You can also get access to things like exclusive giveaways of 4Ks, Blu-rays. If you want a DVD, I guess you could also get a DVD as well, digital codes, and of course, you get to possibly join me on the channel once a month for the Chosen of Valhalla live stream and access to an exclusive podcast featuring John the Flick Pick Flickinger, where we have a lot of fun talking about movies and tons of other random things. Anyway, if you want to support these things, check out the links in the description of this video. And also, please consider joining my other channel, the OMB Report, where I talk about not just movies like I do over here, but I focus more so on politics, news, and culture in that order. You guys are all amazing. Thank you for your love and support. Have a wonderful day. And as always, God bless.